A lot of the time in games that aren't exclusively supposed to be scary, we get something random that just gives us the heebie-jeebies. Hi folks, it's Falcon, and today on gameranx, 10 terrifying levels in non-horror games. Number 10 is Demon's Souls Tower of Latria. This is just a truly creepy and foreboding location. Yeah, Demon's Souls isn't exactly a sunny and cheerful game normally, but most of the areas are pretty well lit, and it's really not a horror game, even if it has some pretty creepy locations. Out of all of the places you go in this game, the Tower of Latria is probably the creepiest. You start out in this miserable prison area that's almost pitch black. It's patrolled by some weird octopus-headed monsters that can kill you in one hit. Once you get out of there, it only gets worse as you're taken to Upper Latria, which is, by the way, just a bizarre collection of broken down towers and narrow walkways. It's dark as hell. There's this weird beating heart in the central tower, and there's these freaky human-faced bugs all over the place making weird moaning sounds. This looks more like a Silent Hill Otherworld than an actual palace, and the first time you get here, it's pretty overwhelming. But on the other hand, it is really a unique location in the game that stands out even in the forerunner of the Soulsborne series. I remember it to this day and loved seeing it in the remake. At number 9 is the Tomb Raider Reboot's Geothermal Caverns. The recent Tomb Raider Reboot games have all had their moments of being a little spooky, but no other area in the series is as aggressively unpleasant as this one. This is the place you end up escaping from the crazy cultists. You're forced to jump into a pit of blood and gore to do that, and it doesn't get much better. Seriously, this place starts with you swimming through a pool of blood with body parts floating in it. It's the most disgusting area in the game, and it is by a long shot. After getting out of there, you enter the pit, which is where the cult keeps its prisoners. For a while, you're stalked by these shambling creeps before getting into an all-out shootout in what's one of the tensest battles of the game. This is another area that feels like it came out of a Silent Hill game or something like Outlast. It's really over-the-top nasty with the amount of bodies, blood, and severed limbs you experience. Like, the game had a few creepy moments before this, but this is just on another level. At number 8 is We Don't Go to Ravenholm from Half-Life 2. This is an absolutely iconic scary level. Most of Half-Life 2 was basically a running battle up to this point. You'd be fully equipped with an arsenal of guns and could easily deal with any of the Combine soldiers, the headcrab zombies that were in your path. But here, at least at the start, all you have is the newly acquired gravity gun and a city filled with the dead. This is Ravenholm. It is an empty city that's been destroyed by the Combine, filled with headcrabs, and you got to get through it. There's two main factors when it comes to why this place is unique. The way the game depowers you before it sends you there, and of course, the sound design. At this point, you had only been using the gravity gun to solve simple puzzles. Using this thing as an offensive weapon by pulling saws and objects off the ground is at first pretty awkward, and then it forces you to look away from your enemies to find stuff to shoot at them, adding tension to the encounters. The freakish wails and pleading of the people transformed by the headcrabs is unnerving. They're not just reanimated corpses, these things talk and basically beg you to kill them. This is the area that introduces the running headcrab zombies as well, who can chase you down in seconds rather than just slowly shamble at you. The place starts off slow before slowly building and building until you're fighting off waves of zombies who attack you from multiple angles. It is an intense level, but at least you've got Father Gregory watching your back. I mean, he only appears in this level, but he is one of the most memorable characters in the Half-Life series. Really, this is one of the most memorable levels. Truly unnerving and different. At number 7 is 343 Guilty Spark from Halo Combat Evolved. Now, this is the introduction of the Flood. Yes, these are old hat by now. But back when this game was first released, the fact that this sci-fi military shooter suddenly became a horror game halfway through was mind-blowing. It was literally halfway through. It was level 6 out of 10, and it happens after one of the biggest action stages of the game, the assault on the control room. The level is tense from the start. There are signs of fighting, but nothing is alive. There are broken doors and a creepy atmosphere around the whole thing, and it doesn't sound like much while I'm describing it here, but there's a definite shift in tone right when you get into this level. Eventually, there's a video log out of aliens where some Marines exploring this place are overwhelmed by something. It is not long before you find out what. It is the Flood, of course, the all-consuming race of weird mold bug creatures that want to consume every living thing in the universe. These things obviously fight completely different from the Covenant. Instead of military tactics, these things just swarm you with numbers. And in this level at least, you're just gonna have to make a run for it. I cannot overstate how unexpected this whole thing was. Yeah, in retrospect, it wasn't that scary, but that's only because these things have kind of become a staple of the Halo series, and the Flood aren't really that scary anymore. But this was their first appearance, and this level did an amazing job building these things up as a threat. At number 6 is Fallout 3's Dunwich building. Bethesda really got us with this one. At the bottom leftmost corner of the Capital Wasteland, the building can just be found sitting there looking totally normal. Just another abandoned building out of hundreds you've seen and explored in the game, right? Well, not really. The place is already pretty creepy. It's a pitch black office building interior with feral ghouls. I don't know really what it is, but there's something about some of the inside areas about Fallout 3 that just put me on edge. Maybe it's the ambient noises or the sticky green light of the Pip-Boy, but this game can be pretty creepy even when they're not trying to be. Thing is, this place is definitely trying. There are spooky logs all over the place detailing how this place descended into madness, along with a ghostly flashback showing people from the building before the bombs fell. The ghostly figure appears normal, but when the hallucination ends, instead of looking at a guy in a suite, you're facing down a glowing one of the most dangerous ghouls in the game. The deepest part of the area is known as the Virulent Underchambers and contains a strange obelisk that irradiates you if you get too close to it. Getting close to it triggers a nearly inaudible voice clip that sounds like a voice, I guess. Basically, the whole place is spooky as hell, and there's no way around that. At number 5 is The Nightmares from Max Payne. The original Max Payne is, it's cool as hell. It's got bullet time, it's got the comic book aesthetic, it's got a story about revenge and taking happiness from someone and leaving them with nothing. But it's also got some pretty weird stuff in it for being a John Woo-inspired shooter. Like, yeah, there's over-the-top violence and action, but there's also goofy TV shows to watch and weird little scenes and secrets everywhere. But, specific to this video, going along with this madness, there's a wild dream sequence at the end of Chapter 2, where Max gets shot up with an experimental drug and has a seriously bad trip. After reliving the moment his family is killed, you have to navigate this, for lack of a better term, blood maze, which is a pitch black abyss with only these tiny blood trails to walk on. The only thing you hear is a crying baby, and to say the very least, it's very unpleasant and very frustrating. This isn't the only time you have to navigate one of these things either. Like, this is the second blood maze, and it's worse than the first one. The dream sequences in Max Payne are there's something else. Some argue that the ones in the second game are freakier, but I think the ones in Max Payne 1 it's slight, but they beat them out. At number 4 is Queen Vanessa's Manor from A Hat in Time. Here is one that really got me by surprise. A Hat in Time is an indie throwback to Nintendo 64 style platformers, and it's about as kid-friendly as you can get. Like, it's a game about a kid who flies a hat-shaped spaceship, and it has a bedroom made of pillows. It's seriously the last game that you'd expect something scary to happen in. But in the third level, the Subcon Forest, which is one of the spooky theme levels and, platform games, they exist. It's something along the lines of Big Boo's Haunt or Mad Monster Mansion from Banjo-Kazooie, like a kind of Halloween-themed level, more than anything actually scary. That is, until you get to Act 4, Queen Vanessa's Manor. Normally this game is Mario 64, but this level, on the other hand, is Amnesia. In it, you have to dodge this towering ghost that will, when it catches you, kill you instantly. So the only way to get around this place is by sneaking. And if you want to leave, then there's no going back. You're trapped in this place until you get through it. Seriously, this place is just a straight up horror game. This thing stalks you relentlessly, and you are powerless to fight it. The only way through is by carefully sneaking. They even throw in a couple of jump scares that take control of your character away from you for a while, just to make things extra unnerving. A Hat in Time is about as non-horror as a game can get, but for whatever reason they inserted a horror game into just one level. It's definitely surprising, if nothing else. And number 3 is the Blood Kelp Caves in Subnautica. Now, Subnautica's kind of a creepy game anyways, especially for people afraid of deep water or wide open spaces, but it's not a horror game. The horror kind of comes naturally with the setting, I guess, but it's more of a survival and exploration game. But combine exploring the unknown with darkness, creepy sea creatures, and the constantly ticking clock that is limited oxygen, and you've got a game that is pretty tense. There are quite a few biomes that could qualify for this list here, but probably the most straight up scary is the Blood Kelp Caves. It even has a creepy name. This place, found deep underwater, is filled with these creepy blood roots that have packets of blood oil growing on them. It's kind of one of the most alien and unnatural zones you encounter in this game, and if it's one of the first deep sea areas you encounter, it's going to give you some pretty serious anxiety just being in the game. Who knows what kind of creatures are lurking around, right? Well, there are these deep sea blood crawlers and some pretty aggressive fish, but the real danger of this place is getting lost. The way plants grow down here, it is super easy to get mixed up or turn around, just not know where you're going, and there are not a lot of landmarks to help you better orient yourself. There's something about drowning in video games that almost makes it worse than being attacked by a sea monster as well. It's just freaky, but this game really sort of masters that for whatever reason. There are deeper parts of the world in Subnautica to discover, but this place remains the creepiest. At number 2 is the Cult mission in SWAT 4. Now, SWAT 4 is a game where you command a 4-person SWAT team going through various missions in a procedural style. There's no twist or even an overarching story of any kind, just a series of missions that can be really tense, but there's nothing generally scary about it. Mission number 9, the Children of Tyrone Tenement, is different, however. In it, you're tasked with bringing in a cult leader named Andrew Tyrone, who has taken over this abandoned tenement building and turned it into a cult compound. The mission briefing specifically mentions that you have to watch out for any children in the area, so you're probably going into this thing expecting to see a lot of civilians. Now, there are a lot of cultists around this dump. Some are armed, some are unarmed, but there aren't a lot of children. You might think this is just a gameplay contrivance because they don't want you shooting kids by mistake, but when you get into the dugout basement of this place, you learn the truth. There is a line of very small graves down there. It's sickening and something that's never directly commented on in the game. It's just a really unpleasant background detail. Honestly, the place is unusually creepy just in general, being a dark and congested building with windows all boarded up and passages cut through the walls. The graves you find just add to the whole thing. It's kind of a surprising layer of darkness for what is a pretty normally dry police game, and that's why this level is really stuck with people for a long time. And finally, at number 1 is the Shale Bridge Cradle from Thief 3 Deadly Shadows. The Thief series always has its spooky parts, but nothing compares to this place at all, even kind of. Just the description is creepy. It is a former insane asylum and orphanage. Garrett, the main character, says it best: "If there's a way to cram more misery into one building's history, I can't think of it." After entering, you're trapped by the spirit of the building and are forced to deal with these grotesque monsters called puppets, who, by the way, to make matters even worse, are just almost completely unkillable. Knock one out, it'll just get back up again later. Remember, it's a stealth game where you play as a thief. Up until this point, all you've really had to deal with are a few guards, and there is just nothing like this before this level. It doesn't help that this place is really dark and maze-like, and the only way to escape is to assist a ghost, which forces you to explore the place fully. Like, the whole thing is just incredibly tense. I know we're kind of spoiling it here, but the first time playing this game and getting to this place is a total shock to the system. You used to be powerful in the shadows, but now you're totally outmatched, and it's easily one of the scariest sections of all time, let alone just in this series. But what do you think? Leave us a comment about the scariest place you can think of in a game, if it's on this list or not, and if you like this video, click like. If you're not subscribed, now's a great time to do so. We upload brand new videos every day of the week. The best way to see them first is, of course, a subscription, so click subscribe. Don't forget to click the notification bell, and as always, we thank you very much for watching this video. I'm Falcon. You can follow me on Twitter at Falcon the Hero. We'll see you next time, right here on gameranx.